Hey guys, I'm Joe, and this is the Rebel's Advocate. I'm sorry, it's been a while since I made my last video. I feel like I'm in the confessional. Forgive me, audience, for I have sinned. It's been over 2 weeks since my last video. I apologize for that. I need to do better. I need to make at least one video a week. I'm sorry, time's kind of got away from me. But I was coming home tonight from work. Sitting in my driveway now. Everybody's in bed, and I figured I'd turn on the camera and just talk a little bit. Some of you know, if you follow my channel, if you've watched my other videos, a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, I made a video called "Proud to be an Atheist," and that entire video was basically inspired by a guest spot. I was listening to a podcast, and David Silverman happened to be a guest. And I was basically inspired by what he had to say. And I made that whole video kind of, off of that. And wouldn't you know, a few weeks later now, he's been fired from the American Atheist, and allegations of, we don't fully know, but there's a BuzzFeed article of some sexual assault. Sounds pretty bad. And also maybe some money problems. I don't know. But it got me thinking. I thought I'd talk about it for a little while. This, especially, this is apparently it's happened a lot lately. Just recently, Lawrence Krauss, a big name in the atheist movement. Same thing. And with the whole MeToo movement that's been going on, and I don't think I've really talked about that in any of these videos. I did talk about it in one video I did, which never got released. It kind of got deleted. That's a whole nother story. But I don't think I've talked about it in any of the videos that I've actually put out. Here, the Me Too movement is a big movement, with everything, but inside our own little atheist community, or the atheist movement, or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know how much I can talk about it, and how, I'm not, like, for me, my atheist community is really, is a community of people online, really, people I don't even know in person. I've never been to the first atheist conference or, convention or whatever. Not that I wouldn't like to go. I'd love to go, and hopefully one day I will. But, I can't speak a whole lot to what goes on in the atheist community. I'm not, that big a part of it. But I think we do have to kind of, but we are still a part of it in a way, even if it is just, online or whatever, and standing together and, letting people know these are things we're not going to tolerate. These are things, that we're not going to sweep under the rug, and we're not going to hide. And when this thing with David Silverman come out, and I guess the American Atheist, I guess they're, some sort of investigation going on about it or whatever. I don't know, but it does sound, as of right now, pretty credible that something's going on. I've yet to see. It's been, as of this recording, it's been several days, and I've yet to see a statement from him denying, or a statement period. So I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say this, but when I first saw the story that he was let go, and it didn't say why, initially, my first thought was that it's probably this. It's probably, because it just seems like that's the thing these days. And it seems like a bad thing in a way, like so many men are being uh, outed for this, and it's coming to light that they're doing it, and it seems like a bad thing, but I don't think that it's getting any worse. I think the only difference is now women are starting to stand up and they're starting to speak out, and not only that, but I think a lot of women, not to fault women as if they've never spoken out before, because I think a lot of women have spoke out for years and nobody's believed them, nobody's listened to them. And finally, their voices are being heard. And that's why this MeToo movement, I think, is so important and it's such a good thing. But anyhow, when I first, seen the story and I figured that's what it was, you just figure in the back of your head that's probably what it's going to be. I'm embarrassed to say this, but my very first thought was, oh shit. I hope some of my Christian friends don't see this, and then it's just going to be posting this left and right. Oh, look, the president of the American Atheist, and look what he did, and blah, blah, blah. It's just, that was my first thought. And immediately, almost as soon as it hit my head, it's like, man, like, that should be the last thing I'm concerned about. When there's actual, victims here, there's, people that's been done wrong, and the last thing I should be worried about is, what some Christian thinks about us over here in the atheist movement, and it's attitudes like that, like the thought that I had, that leads to people wanting to sweep things under the rug and hide shit. And the last thing I want, we're not the fucking Catholic Church here, and we got to be better than that, and call this shit out. And so it doesn't bother me. I don't care who it is. I don't care, if I did like the guy. And not that I like, honestly, I had a lot of problems with him. Like, there was a lot of things he did maybe I wasn't in favor of as much, his firebrand style, but like, that on the podcast that I talked about in the last video, man, I was just so inspired by what he had. Everything he said was so good, and I liked it. And it is disappointing when people like that you kind of look up to, then they do something so fucked up. And we'll say allegedly, but as of right now, like, a lot of these stories, I haven't seen it. Everybody wants to make out like, oh, now these women can just say whatever, and anybody, but when you ask these people to kind of show you, examples of that, they kind of usually come up short. But, I think, like I said, him going down, it's disappointing, but I don't think it was as bad as when it come out about Lawrence Krauss. Because, I'm not a very smart guy, and I'm not, I don't claim to know a whole lot, but I love science. I love science. I don't understand. I couldn't sit down and talk to you about science. You'd realize real quick that I'm not that smart when it comes to it. But I like to listen to other people smarter than I am and pretend like I know what the hell they're saying. And, sit down and watch some Cosmos or something. That shit, I love that shit. And so when you have a guy who is a big name in the atheist movement, and he's also, a scientist and a physicist, those things, to be a scientist and also be outspoken atheist, that's a pretty cool thing. And then when it come out about him, that was probably more disappointing to me than most. But what bothered me is after the fact, and again, this is probably, due to me not being that plugged into the atheist community, because I'm not. But after the fact, then you start hearing all this talk about, oh yeah, there was rumors about him going around for years, And people were saying this about him for years, and especially from women inside the atheist community saying, yeah, we've been saying this about him for a long time and nobody's listened. And that right there is, that's what bothered me more than anything, is to think that, I would hope and I would think that our community would be better than that. And that's disappointing to think that there was, a large number of people that are higher up and bigger names in this community that would know about that and would sweep it under the rug or ignore it, because of who he is, because of his name, and I get it. People like that you like to have as leaders in your community, but man, we cannot tolerate that kind of behavior in our. I don't give a damn who they are, or that's not. I don't want that to be representative of who I am. I don't want to be part of a community that condones that kind of shit, and we have to speak out against it. Even those of us like myself who are just, the only voice we have is maybe online in our Facebook groups and this and that, and talking to the creators that we listen to or watch, whether it be podcast or YouTube or whatever. And maybe we see some of these people and they're having guests on, and we know, that they're guilty of some of this shit. We need to let them know. It's just, back, it's been months ago with this MeToo movement, and this wasn't arguments I was having with fellow atheists. This was mostly with Christians and, just friends and family that I know. And what blows my mind is how everyone seems to so quickly dismiss any allegation, as soon as any woman steps forward to make any kind of claim like that, to make an accusation like this, they're so quick to brush it off, to immediately attack the victim, which in their eyes isn't a victim. In their eyes is someone just trying to bring down another man, and they're so quick to do that. And there's two extremes to it. I'm not saying that I'm going to believe anything that any woman says. If any woman says this guy done that, it doesn't mean I'm automatically going to believe her. But I think you definitely have to listen to her and look into that, right? And it amazes me, the hypocrisy of it is that they will immediately dismiss it. They'll attack that person, and yet they'll immediately believe the person being accused. All they have to say is, I didn't do it. There probably wasn't a better example of it than the Roy Moore case. I could not believe it. How many people, and I don't even, lights went out. I don't even, live there. So there's, and the people that I know, they don't live there, so they don't even have to vote for him. So it's completely easy for these Christian people that I knew, because they have no obligation to vote. They can't vote for him. They don't live in the state. They could have easily said, oh yeah, what he did is wrong. And they couldn't do that. They literally couldn't do that. Well, we don't know. We don't, they were so quick. Like, how many women do you have to line up? How many women have to tell the same story before you believe something? And it just, I don't know, it amazes me, and probably the part that is so bothersome to me is because I'm not sure where this come from, why it's the way it is. I think it's just generation after generation of inequality and sexism, to the point that some of the women are as bad as the men, and I don't if it's just a product of being, and I know religion has some to do with it also. When you believe in a book that basically, if you're a woman and you believe in a book that basically tells you to keep silent and, that you are second rate, you're under the male, that definitely plays into it. But also just generation after generation of this inequality, to the point that, women could start believing that this is true. And I think what blew me away, and I won't say who it was, but it was somebody really close to me, and it's a woman. And we were having a conversation about this whole MeToo movement, and of course the old line come up of basically like, well, it's getting to the point where a man can't say anything to a woman. You can't even flirt with a woman. And I asked, and I kind of asked the question, well, give me an example of where this is happening, because we hear this a lot, but I'm not seeing the examples of where a man was just simply flirting with a woman, wasn't harassing her, and like literally arguing about Roy Moore. Like during that whole debacle, I've seen Christians posting like, a man can't even speak to a woman anymore, and that shit just infuriates me. Like, and we're talking about, this isn't a guy who just harassed women. We're talking about, now we're talking about young girls. Like, literally, that's how low your morals have dropped, to you will readily, defend that. And it's just unbelievable. And so I was talking to this person, get back what I was talking about originally. This woman is kind of brought up, well, a man can't hardly talk to a woman. And I was, I was staying calm, and we were just having a conversation. And, I was asking questions kind of the same way, like, well, do you know of a situation where this happened? Can you? And well, no. And as the conversation went on, and she kind of was like, well, I see your point about this, and I see it. But still kind of clinging to that, almost, blaming the women, not believing the women. And then as time went on, she began to tell me a story about when she was a teenager, and how a family friend who was much older, hit on her in a really inappropriate way. She was still just a teenager. He's an older man and a family friend. Now, thankfully, nothing actually come of it. Nothing actually happened. But it was very inappropriate. And, she's just a girl. And so she ended up telling her parents about it. And, this was back in the 60s, early 70s, so you can guess how that went. They basically did nothing. I'm not even sure if they believed her, whatever. So here she is telling me this story, like she can totally relate, and this is something that she's held on to for all these years. And at the same time asking questions like, well, why would a woman wait so many years before they would come out? And, why wait till now, basically? If this happened 30, 40 years ago, why would you wait till now? And yet she's telling me this story of something that happened, 40, 50 years, 40 some years ago, or whatever it is. And it's like, how can you see this happen to you? Thankfully, it wasn't really bad to the point of being raped or sexually assaulted, but definitely was someone tried to take advantage of you as a young girl. And how can you see this and then not have some sympathy for these women, not just brush them off the same way you were brushed off? When you came out, when you spoke, how that feels. And like, I don't know what level of indoctrination that can bring you to that point. You know what I mean? It's just, it kind of baffles me how that happens. Like I said, I'm not that big in, I'm not plugged into the atheist community per se, but what I do know is the little corner of it that I have is so important to me, because where I live is deeply religious. So this online community I have, like Facebook group, just to be able to talk out loud, or type out loud, basically, and say things that you can't say on a day-to-day basis. And it's changing. It's changing a lot. I've encountered more people even in this area. Like, it's kind of blew my mind in the last couple years. Like, they're out there. There's even here where I can throw a rock and hit a church in either direction. There's more atheists than I ever imagined, and a lot of them are younger. And in another generation or two, I see big changes even in some of these rural areas, like where I live. Even out here in the sticks. I mean, don't get me wrong. Out here we'll probably still be outnumbered, but they're going to be a lot louder. And so now, not all the atheists I meet are, I wouldn't label them as humanist. A lot of the atheists I meet around here, they're still homophobic and bigoted, and you know what I mean. Like, it doesn't mean that they're great people always. So if those people were to reach out for a community and want to be part of something, if maybe their atheism, if they were like me and just their atheism alone made them go looking for people like-minded, I hope they will find people that, put equality first and love, and don't tolerate mistreating other people in any way, whether it be sexual assault or whatever it may be. We don't put up with that shit. It's kind of like with my Facebook groups. I love Facebook groups, but I'll be honest with you, I probably only have a couple of the atheist groups that I even, and I don't say a whole lot in any of them. A lot of it is just, it's fun to read other people and maybe comment on their post or whatever. But when I am vocal within those groups, there's probably only a couple of them that I am, and they're kind of smaller groups, because a lot of the larger ones is just the atmosphere there isn't all that great sometimes. And so sometimes these smaller groups that are moderated well, and the groups that are hey, we don't put up with, basically, what I'm saying, they don't put up with bullying, they don't put up with, we're going to have, it's great to have a back and forth if you want to have discussions or whatever, but we don't put up with mistreating other people. And I would hope that, it's just like me, when I lost my religion, when I've talked about it before, when I kind of slowly become an atheist, well, I was still all of those things that I was when I believed. I was still, I was still bigoted in so many ways, and slowly, and I want to think that maybe the reason I changed, because you don't change, just losing your religion doesn't make you all of a sudden become a better person. I mean, it helps because you're no longer bound by, this book that promotes some of these bad things. But I like to think a lot of it was, when I went looking into for other like-minded people online and kind of dipped my toes into the atheist community, that I did, see, and I was introduced to a lot of people that promoted humanism, basic humanism. And I like to think that those people are still the majority in our movement. We got a lot of assholes to weed out, but I like to think that the good people are still the majority. And a lot of people want to just give up on the movement altogether. They think they shouldn't be an atheist movement altogether, but I think it's important. I really do. You look at what's going on, especially in our government and all this shit. I think religion is, I think religion realizes the position it's in, and it realizes it's dying. And man, it is fighting hard. They're going to fight hard and try to cling to everything they can get right now. And they realize they're losing ground in a lot of areas. And I think that's why with this administration, they're fighting so hard and they want to take us backwards. We've come so many steps forward and they want to take us back as far as they can. But we just got to hold on. We got to hold our ground, because I promise you, man, in a few years, the tides are going to change. Things are going to be different. A lot of these young people growing up, and I know they're still going to be, bigoted young people. Like, they're still assholes growing up. But, just like the atheist community, I like to think that that the majority of them are good. I really feel that way. And it isn't all about being left or right. It's just about being decent. Just about being a decent fucking human being, That shouldn't be that hard. I need to get inside and get in bed, I guess. It's almost 4:30 in the morning. I just wanted to turn on camera and talk about that a little bit. And so I apologize for making David Silverman my the inspiration for the video a few weeks ago, and then this happened. But shit happens. Anyway, I'm getting off here, guys. I'm rambling a little much, but I love you, and we'll talk to you later, hopefully. Bye.